So we continue our journey through the Ramban, Parshas Vayeizei. I'll share with you a few choice ideas. So the first Ramban, towards the beginning of the parsha, discusses the ladder, and there's a few beautiful ideas that come out of his pirush. So it's Perek Chavches Pasuk Yud Beis, Vayachaloi Minei Sulam Matzav Arza V'Rosh Magia Shamoyma V'nei Malachei Elokim Olim V'Yordim Boi. Malachim going up and down the ladder. V'nei Sulam Matzav Arza says the Ramban, Hereo B'Chalom HaNevuah. He showed him in the vision, this vision, the prophetic dream, Ki Kol HaNaseh Be'aretz Naseh L'Dei HaMalachim. That everything that happens in the land is all through malachim, and everything is in the decree of Hashem upon them. Right? So you immediately see that the Ramban is understanding the vision of the ladder as something far beyond the specific event and the specific point of Yaakov leaving and on his journey. You know, it's a much bigger thing. It's a message which encompasses everything. Right, everything. The fact that malachim as spiritual emanations and Hashem's messengers in terms of His word, and that's how Hashem delivers things in this world. Ki malachi Elokim asher sholach Hashem l'salech ba'aretz le'asu ktano gedola ad shuvam l'siatzev al adon kol haaretz lo malafonov yislach l'moretz ne'yesheves b'shal v'malei acherev v'dam. The malachim that are sent by Hashem, they don't do anything, small or large, until they return to stand before Hashem. We're on Perek Chavches Pasuk Yud Beis. To stand in front of Hashem, right? To say and declare, so to speak. I mean, we're explaining it in words. It's using words that we can relate to. Obviously, this is a spiritual thing. So they say, well, we've done what you instructed us to do, and this is the situation. There's tranquility in the land, or the opposite. There's war. And then he commands them to return to the land and to do the next command. So this is a cosmic thing, this vision, right? It's about how HaKadosh Baruch Hu interacts with the world, so to speak. The Malachim are spiritual emanations, they're messengers of Hashem's word, and they carry those things out, and then they come back and they describe what they have done, so to speak, and then Hashem sends them on a different mission. But then the Ramban says something fascinating. What is the message to Yaakov? V'hereu ki hu yitzbarach nishem ki hu yitzbarach nitzov al hasulam. That Hashem Himself is standing, right? Is standing above the ladder. V'nei Hashem nitzov alov. Sorry, is standing above Him, really, to guard Him. And what is the message of that? The next pasuk. Umavticho liYaakov b'avtocha gedola. He reassures him with a tremendous promise. Lohudia, to tell him shehu lo yiyah b'yad malachim. He's not going to be under the hand of these malachim. The whole world, everything operates right through the malachim. Except you. You are the portion of Hashem, and Hashem will be with you always. The message, according to Ramban, is that for you, I am personally looking after you. The malachim, it's the contrast, according to Ramban. You understand? The contrast is the whole world operates through these malachim. But you're different. I'm going to personally look after you. I'm going to protect you. The Pasuk in Tehillim says Hashem sent His malachim to look after tzaddikim, and Yaakov is above that. So it's a very different sort of perspective on the ladder, right? On what's going on here. The malachim are descending. It's very different to how we generally understand it, right? That the Rashi certainly seems to understand that the messages that the malachim, this one we're used to, right? The idea that malachim who were with him in Eretz Yisrael, they go up and there are different malachim coming down that accompany him to Chutz La'aretz, right? We're familiar with this pshat. This is Rashi, right? Ramban is a different mahalach. Ramban's explanation is that Hashem is telling him, you are in a different class, you're in a different category. There's personal protection for you. What comes to mind, in a way, with the description the Ramban is providing here, is similar to the idea that Eretz Yisrael is this. Obviously, he's leaving Eretz Yisrael, but in terms of Eretz Yisrael, Eini Hashem Elokecha, but right, Hashem is the direct connection, looking after Eretz Yisrael. And then Ramban carries on and says, Valdas Rabbi Eliezer Hagadol. He says he brings the Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, and he says that this vision, according to the Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, which is the Medrash, it is a parallel and a vision which it parallels the vision to Avram Avinu with the bris bein habasarim, right? Just like Avraham Avinu is told about the future exiles of the Jewish people, so too that's what Yaakov is being told about, is being instructed here. And this is what it means, the messengers, the angels, the malachim of Hashem. He brings the Pesukim in Daniel, that there's the angel of Malchus Yovon, of the Greeks and the Persians, of Pras. And he promised him, so this explanation of the Ramban is different. There's another explanation based on the Medrash, that the vision is about the future direction of the Jewish people. It's about the whole history of Klal Yisrael. That's what's going on. And each of the Malachim represents a different one of those exiles. And Hashem, the promise is that like your experience now, as you go into exile, as you go into, this is the whole Maisa of a similar bond, all links to the things we've been, the themes of the Ramban that we've discussed many times, right? Yeah, you understand, right? The whole idea, and Yaakov is experiencing this, and this is what his children will experience. And they'll experience all these exiles. But Hashem says, I will be there, and I will always be protecting you. And that's the message for his children. And he says, the Medrash, he continues the Medrash, he was shown the four kingdoms, how they rose and fell. Bovel, and he goes into Modai, and he goes and says how high they rose. I think that means rungs. It must mean rungs. Shiva Okim must mean rungs, I imagine. They went up 70 things, and they come down again. The next one is Modai, and they go up 52 and then come down. Then the kingdom of Yovon, and they go 180, right, and then come down again. And finally the Malchus Edom, the Romans, Ole ve'eno yored, which goes up and up and up and up and doesn't come down, because that's the length of that Golus, the Golus that we are in now. Yaakov said to him, Achel Shoel Tored, we descended to the grave, which I think is like almost an expression of is there no hope. Which is a pasuk in Ovadia, which some have the HaTorah. I think we do that. Different minhagim. Vayishlach. Yeah, what? Maybe we don't do that. There's what? Vayishlach. Yeah, Vayishlach. Some of the HaTorah for some lane have Ovadia as the HaTorah for Vayishlach. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to him that it doesn't. If they go up like an eagle, they will eventually come down. Basically, right? There will be an end to it. There will be an end to it.
Where's that hinted from in the actual?
So I don't know. You'd have to look specifically inside to see whether it's hinted inside. I don't know if it's derived from the word specifically, but the Medrash understands. Pekah Dribelez understands that these are the Malachim, and this is what it means to ascend and descend. The length of time they're in ascendancy, each of these, and the idea being that each of these ruling powers has a guardian angel, so to speak, that represents them, and that's the concept of the Malachim. Yeah, so it's beautiful, two beautiful ideas, very different explanations of the Ramban. The first one being that it's about Yaakov Avinu's personal journey, in the sense that it's a promise that his journey is not like those of others. And it's not like that he's under the domain or protection of Malachim, but he's directly under Hashem says, I will look after you, right? And that's the parallel to his descendants. And then it's the historical sweep of the fact that the whole of their experience will also parallel this in that way through exile. And Hashem says that he will always protect the Jewish people.
His renaming to Israel was later or after?
Yeah, later. Now, Be'er Basota, Perchoftes Posuk, right? He approaches the Be'er Basoda, the well. 1 second. Base. Sorry. Base. So this is what's fascinating about the very beginning of Yaakov's journey after the whole episode and after the promise, and he makes the vow and he'll come back and etc. Right? There's a whole series of psukim which seem to be superfluous. Right? If you like on a superficial level, you understand why is the Torah telling us this? There's a Be'er Basod. Okay, we know what we need to know about the well. Why do we need to know that there's Shlosha Edrei Tzon Roftzim Olel? Right? Why do we need to know there's three flocks right next to it, right? And the fact that they would water them from there, and there's this big stone, and they gather there, and they roll off this, and etc., etc. Okay, because I'm setting the scene, right? Rivka's going to come, etc., and that's how he engages them in conversation. Do you know about Lavan? And of course, you can understand it on a simple level. But the Ramban is troubled as to why the Torah needs to tell us this in such length. Says the Ramban, Yarech HaKosov b'Sipur Hazeh. The Torah goes to great lengths with this description, Lehodi'enu, to teach us, Ki Kovei Hashem Yachalifu Koyach, that those who hope to Hashem will have renewed strength. HaTorah for Parshas? Recent. No. Lech Lecha, right? Kevi Hashem echlifu koyach. Jeremy, you leaned it. Kevi Hashem echlifu koyach. No, it's all right, don't worry. Yeah. Kevi Hashem echlifu, sorry. I remember. Kevi Hashem echlifu koyach. Those who hope to Hashem will have renewed strength. V'yirosoi titein ois. And his fear will give strength, right? V'yirosoi, it will give strength. Yaakov v'inu bo min haderech, right? That means fearing Hashem gives strength. An amazing concept. Yaakov Avinu comes from the journey and he's tired, he's weary. They had to gather together and everything they need. That's what they do. That's what they told him, right? They said that we have to wait until everyone's come together, right? Until we are able to roll off the stone, as the Pesukim go on to describe. Yaakov was able to do so himself. And Rashi says again, it's astonishing. Rashi says on Pasuk Yud, like someone who was able, he was able to roll off the stone, like someone who flicks off the stopper from a glass jar. Tell you he was very strong. It's astonishing, Rashi. Yaakov Avinu, you need to know, is he man? I mean, what does it mean? What does it actually mean? To tell you his strength is very strong. So what? But this Ramban explains it beautifully. Because according to this Ramban, the message is, right? And you have these three flocks, and they've got lots of shepherds looking after them, and all the guardians, and they're all there, and no one can move it. And comes along Yaakov Avinu. And because he is a Kovei Hashem, because he hopes to Hashem, and because he's on a mission and Hashem is protecting him, Yachlifu Koach. That's what it means, because with that, a person is unstoppable. You know, the end of this, V'yiroso titein oz, which I can't recall. It must be, maybe is. I don't know whether it's the end of that posuk. But the point. What? No, it's not. It's not in Yeshayahu, but. Let's just check. I don't think it's the end of it. 1 second. No, it's not. It's definitely not the pasuk, because the pasuk says the Kovi Hashem echlifu koach yalu eva kanashorim. Right. That's the end of it. Yalu eva kanashorim. So that's the end of the pasuk. So this is really the 1 second. Yeah. Someone made into a song, right? Anyway, so the Ramban is amazing. He adds these words. You know what that means? The fear of Hashem gives strength. Soloveitchik said that when people, he says that he was once, I think he said he was once asked by a psychiatrist or psychologist perhaps, that why is it that we say in the Tefillah, V'chein tein pachtacha, say in Yom Leroy, V'chein tein pachtacha, you should cast your dread. So I spend my whole life trying to help people with their fears, and then they go to shul with a chen tein pachla. They're asking for fear. Rav Soloveitchik said, "Yeah, that's not pshat." The explanation is that the tefillah is of a chen tein pachla. You should only be afraid of Hashem, and all the other fears should melt away because you have the trust that Hashem is in control, and we rest in Hashem's hands. And that's what I think he means in Ramban. Yoroso titein oz. It's a beautiful concept, right? The fear of Hashem gives strength. So it's in a way a paradox, right? You're afraid, but that gives you strength. This is how it is. So that's what Ramban says. That's the first word. Beautiful, beautiful idea.
I think that's physical strength, particularly.
Pardon?
I think it is physical.
Correct. He's saying it is.
Like spiritual strength.
He's saying it is. He's saying it is because it goes together. A person who has a sense of why, right? Anything is possible, right? Any, the famous quote, whatever. I think it was Nietzsche actually. A person who has a why can bear almost any how, right? If you live for a why, that's the message. In other words, yes, it means you're physically stronger. You're physically able to do more. You actually can jump further. You actually can do more than you thought otherwise because you have a mission that you live for, and that is the message of the Ramban. And then he brings the Medrash. The Medrash ties this again, as the Ramban has told us so many times, as a secret hint for the future. It's a hint to the future. He goes and encounters this well. And there's only 3 flocks there. There's a stone there on the well, and they're protecting it. That he will be successful in his mission, and he will have children who will merit this hint. This is again the Medrash understanding. The whole thing is a hint to the future. How so? What is the well? It's the Beis Hamikdash, where you draw inspiration from. The well, right? The Gimel Edritzon Ole Shlosha Regolim. What are the 3 flocks? The 3-foot festivals, the Yomim Tovim, the Shlosha Regolim. They draw from the well. That's what happens. Klal Yisrael come to the Beis Hamikdash on the Shlosha Regolim, and they draw inspiration. They drew a Ruach HaKodesh. From Tzion will come Torah, which is compared to water. They hold the great masses of Klal Yisrael come, and they roll off the stone and they give to drink. And afterwards they put the stone back on, and it's left there ready. The well is left ready to drink from at the next Yom Tov. So again, according to Ramban, this is the whole this idea of the 3 Edreit stone and the description of how they roll the stone off, right? Because again, you understand the Medrash is picking up on all of the phrases which seem to be superfluous. Look at the whole of Pasuk Gimel, V'nesvu shama cholo adorim, and it's describing what happened. And this is what happens: they all gather there and they roll the stone off the well, and they give the sheep to drink, and then they put the stone back. Why do we need to know these details? What goes on in some place in the middle of the desert in Choron, right? The process for giving the flocks to drink by a well. Yeah, you don't need to know all these details, and therefore that's why the Medrash says it's a hint to the future and how we come to the Beis Hamikdash on the Shlosh Yom Tovim and we draw inspiration. Yeah. Yes. Fair enough. And the idea must be again, sort of a similar bonim. The idea that, and the Ramban says that things have to play out specifically through the Ovis, and these things happen to them, and that's what implants it in the future. So that's the simple way of understanding it. And then you can ask, well, why specifically with Yaakov? It's a good question. I mean, a simple level, Yaakov is on a journey, Regalim, and the movements. That's what's going on. He's on the journey, and it's an encounter. Something which would fit with the idea of people going up to Yerushalayim. Yeah. Okay, so now just 2 brief ideas on the wells. Oh yes, of course, absolutely, 100%. Wells, yes. Yeah, absolutely. Could be. Yeah, I'm saying specifically, but yeah, there's a lot of ideas in that. 2 brief ideas from the Ramban, 2 different Rambans on the deception, which to deepen our understanding of just how deceitful Lavan was. Perechov tes posuk tes vov. Vayomer Lavan leYaakov, Achi achiatu, my brother, Shalatani chinam, you should work for me for nothing. Hagidu li ma maskrotecha. Tell me what your wage is. Ask the Ramban. Lo siper akosov posuk tes vov. Lo siper akosov sheYaakov overdose. We've never encountered anywhere that Yaakov is working for Lavan. There's this conversation, again, it's such an obvious thing, we don't even notice it, right? Lavan says, why should you work for me for nothing? Right? And then he's there for a month, and then Lavan says, hey, 1 second, I should really be paying you for working for me. Well, where does it say he works for him? It doesn't work for him. Where's he working? He's just staying there. He's not working for him. Okay? So the first pshat he gives is that once he had encountered Rachel looking after the sheep, so he's not going to not help her, Nebuch, she's looking after all the sheep by herself, and therefore he became the shepherd instead of her. But Ahav also saw. That's his first pshat, right? He was looking up through the love side, he was looking after the sheep. That's the first explanation of the Ramban. That's how he was working, right? The second one is though the Lavan Diber Ba'arma, he says, the second paragraph is Lavan spoke in deceit. And he said, just summarize it outside, he said to him, right, you are my flesh and blood, right? You are my flesh and blood. That's what he said to him. And then he looked after him, etc. Like, your family. Then he saw that Yaakov stayed there and he was, benefiting a bit from Lavan's household. And then he said to him, you're my brother, you should work for me for nothing, because I know for sure, Kiodati says, Kimi ato ta'avodosi, you're certainly going to start working for me now, aren't you? Ki ish musar ata, v'lo tispan shalachem, you're an ethical person. You surely do not want to simply benefit from freebies all day. Okay? and therefore I also don't want you to work for me for nothing, and I'll pay you. And therefore you ask me, well, tell me what it is you want. And that's Yaakov then understood what was going on, and he said he worked 7 years for Rachel. Okay, but it's all a deceit, right? It's all a deceit. Lavan planted it there as if to say, like, give it almost like no option other than agreeing to the work, and then it's like a given, it's a done deal. For sure, you're going to work for me. I'm sure I'm gonna pay you. And the second example is Perek Choftes Pasuk Chov Zayin. It's a little bit later on. The Ramban picks up on the use of the plural form. After he discovers that Leah has been given to him, Lavan says, we don't do these things to give the younger before the older, and that's why I gave you her. And we will give to you this one as well. Who's the we? Right? So the Rashi says that it's a plural form. Like we find elsewhere, the plural form is used. It seems to be almost like the royal we, the royal plural. That's what it seems to be. Yeah, exactly. He brings it on Neradov and Nevlo, which is very similar, exactly, right? We will confuse them exactly, right? Right. Okay. Okay, and then he brings out the expression of the Ibn Ezra, but then he says, second paragraph, what is correct in my eyes, ki divrei Lavan ba'arma, that Lavan spoke with deceit. He said to Yaakov, listen, I've got no choice. I could not let you marry, right? The younger one first. It would be despicable to them. After that, the whole place will agree to let you marry Rachel on condition you're gonna work another 7 years. And then we'll do a big cover to you. In other words, why was he saying v'nitna and we will give her to you? Because the obvious response that Yaakov would have to Lavan is, you tricked me. So now that you've tricked me, that's it. Make amends. Let me marry her. And now he says, no, I can't do that. Right? Because they will object. It's not me. Everyone else. Everyone will object because if they won't allow me to do this, they were the ones who didn't allow me to do it in the other order. And therefore, I want you to marry. You'll have to follow this in order that the whole city will then agree with me to give her to you after you agree to this plan. That's basically the idea. One more, just time for one more Ramban. Much further on, Perek Lamed Aleph Pasuk Yud Tes. Ramban has an incredible explanation on the Trophim. Trophim are very mysterious. We translate these Trophim as Avodah Zarah. The problem with that is the Trophim appear in other places in Tanakh. You know where? David HaMelech. Let's just find it. Lamed Aleph Pasuk Yud Tes. Vatignov Rachel es HaTrophim. Shmuel Aleph Yud Tes. Anyway, you find it in Ramban's problem. Where's the what's it called? Where's that? Sorry. Yeah. So you find the reference to the Trophim in other places. Most notably with David HaMelech. Shmuel Aleph Perek Yud Tes Pasuk Yud Gimel. The Ramban quotes this where it says, "Matikach Michal es HaTrophim." Right, Michal, remember she lowers him out the window. You remember she lowers David HaMelech so he can escape, right? And he runs away. And Michal takes the trophim, she puts it in the bed, and they look like the shape of man. Asuyim, Rashi says there, but muski guf adam. They're made in the form of a human being. Okay. So Rashi says that she wanted to separate him from Avodah Zarah. It could be that Lavan used Avodah Zarah. You can't say that Trophim is always used in the sense of idol worship, right? How on earth could you find these Trophim then in the house of David HaMelech? So it's problematic to understand Trophim as Avodah Zarah. You could say, yes, these are things made in the shape of a man, and Lavan was worshipping them, and David HaMelech wasn't. But it's tricky, right? It's difficult, right? He says, you know what the Trophim were? They are devices to divine the hours. It's like a divination device. The yiksimu bohem ladas asidos, and it's like a fortune telling or future telling type of thing, but right, that's what it was. Okay. And he brings that basically it's the word terofim is related to the word soft. Nirpam atem nirpam, you're weak. Terofim liramos to hint bishram ki diburam kamo nevuah rofa, that the way it's like a soft prophecy. That's the idea of a terofim rofa, because it's like a soft version of prophecy, because it's a way of divining what times are good for certain things or whatever, right? Okay, and that's what he brings a posting. It's the Charaka Trofim de Bruoven. Vine, he says, Yasu Asom Ketane Amon Lahem Leilohim. Those who have little faith, what they do with these things is they make them into a god. That's what they do. Instead of davening to Hashem, instead of turning to Hashem, what do? They do hocus pocus, not avodah zarah. Do you understand? But they basically make their decisions on the basis of this divination or their imaginary ideas as to what what they think the future will be, or what predicts the whether the black cat crosses the path and all this type of stuff. And that's simplistic. We understand. That's it. Rashi brings multiple ideas in Parsha Shoftim about this. Shor Ploni Yofelot Seis, by a certain time is a good time to go out, and this type of stuff, right? And it says, okay, and he brings other Psukim and Shoftim about this to demonstrate this is what they used to do. And he says that Klal Yisrael made this mistake as well with the ephod, because after they got used to the ephod, and I think you must mean the choshen, they made a similar thing to it, not the actual original, the real one, and they also kid musay v'yoshalim by maminim bidvarav. Okay, because that's what he talks about. There's a posting in Shoftim about this. This Micha who made this ephod, and they used to ask things from it, etc., etc. Whether it was an ephod, whether I may not have been like a type of choshen thing, but either it was something like that, and they used to ask and they used to believe it, and therefore they didn't seek Hashem. And this went on. There's another example of this as well. Vinay says, Lovan was involved in divination and witchcraft and things like this. As he says, nichashti, he uses that word nichashti, which is I've divined it through my special methods. What? Like Nochosh, but I think it must be related. By Varcheni Hashem biglalech, right? That Hashem has blessed me. I've divined it. I've seen in the stars or whatever it is that Hashem has blessed me on account of your coming to my house. The arts eretz kosmim me'olam, and his land was the land of this type of sorcery. Kedichsiv kimolu mikedem vaynim kiplishtim. Bilam ben Bar kosmim. He says Bilam ben Bar came from his city, Bilam, right? And that's what it means. Why have you stole my gods? Now, this is the final point. What is the idea the Ramban is telling us? There's a different explanation in Trofim, not avodah zarah, but a method of working out the future. In a way, this explanation fits so powerfully with the whole of what Parashas Vayeizei is about. Yaakov Avinu goes into Golus, he goes into darkness, right? Yaakov Avinu is Masakin Marav and everything else. And that's what it is. And this whole story of how he's alone and it's in the dark and it has such a difficult time and the way he has to work for Lovon and it's all, whatever, etc., right? It's a message, a story in what? In B'tachon, in trusting Hashem. That's how we began. That's how the whole thing. Hashem says, I will protect you. And he sees the Malachim, you're under my protection. And then the exact antithesis of that, according to Ramban, is Lovon. You understand? What is Lovon doing? He's living his whole life on the basis of other imaginary false guides. That's the point of the Trofim. Do you understand? He's going for totem poles and he's going for, anything else that human beings think are what determines and governs their lives, apart from what it really is, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Hashem's Hashgacha Pratis, and that Hashem runs the world. So isn't it beautiful? You understand this section of the Ramban? It's that Lovon is the antithesis of Yaakov. He's the exact opposite. The way he lives his life is the opposite of how we're supposed to live our lives. That's a beautiful idea. Okay, have a wonderful, wonderful Shabbos. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining on Zoom.
Thank you. Good Shabbos.
Okay, good Shabbos. Good Shabbos.